All right, so uranium, huh? Maybe not the first thing that springs to mind when you think exciting, but let me tell you, this is going to be a wild ride.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially when you start digging into clean energy and, what it takes to keep America running.
Yeah,
And it all starts with this kind of crazy fact. Did you know nuclear power is low-key powering like 20% of the U.S.?
yeah, it's huge.
And get this, it's like the backbone of almost half of America's carbon-free energy.
It is.
But here's the catch. We're importing over 90% of the uranium we use.
Yeah.
We're talking Kazakhstan, Canada, even Russia.
It's a big vulnerability.
So that kind of makes you wonder, can we really say we're energy independent?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's where a company like Energy Fuels Inc. comes in. They're the biggest uranium company in the U.S., and they're really trying to shake things up.
Energy fuels, huh? Okay, mission to shake things up. See, this is already more interesting than I thought. Tell me more about them.
Well, they're not exactly new to the game. They've been around since the 80s, building up their know-how, and then the 2000s hit, and that's when demand for uranium really went through the roof. That's when they started making some big moves.
They got the experience, that's for sure. But what about the actual uranium? They're not just like pulling it out of thin air, right?
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting. One of their crown jewels is the White Mesa Mill in Utah. It's the only conventional uranium mill running in the whole U.S. right now.
Wait, the only one? That's kind of crazy considering how much we lean on nuclear power. What happened to all the others?
It really shows you how hooked we've become on foreign uranium. And that's exactly why what Energy Fuels is doing is so important. But it's not just the White Mesa Mill. They've got other aces up their sleeve, like the Nichols Ranch ISR project in Wyoming.
ISR, that's in situ recovery, right?
Mm.
I remember reading about that. It's like a newer, more efficient way to get uranium, yeah.
Exactly. Instead of the old school mining, they inject the special solution into the ground, dissolve the uranium, and pump it back up. It's supposed to be better for the environment too, but here's the real kicker. Energy Fuels is branching out. They're not just focusing on uranium anymore, they're diving into rare earth elements too.
Hold on. Rare earth elements. What's that got to do with energy independence?
Okay, so think about all the tech we use every day. Our smartphones, electric cars, even the stuff in wind turbines and military gear. Rare earth elements are like the essential ingredients in all of that. And guess what? We're super reliant on imports for those too, mostly from China.
So it's the same problem all over again. Different elements, same dependence.
You got it. And Energy Fuels is trying to break that cycle by building up a U.S. supply of both uranium and these vital rare earth elements.
So they're going for the 1-2 punch, huh? Securing our energy and the stuff we need to build our high-tech future. Sounds pretty ambitious. But with nuclear power kind of making a comeback lately, it seems like they might be in the right place at the right time.
They are. For a while there, nuclear power was seen as a bit risky, maybe even a bit old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But now, with everyone pushing for net zero carbon, it's getting a second look. Even the government's getting on board and backing it.
So is Energy Fuels going to ride this wave? Are they really as big a deal as they seem?
They definitely have the potential, but it's not going to be easy. Uranium mining's not exactly a walk up the park. There's the environmental side of things, like how to deal with waste and preventing contamination. Plus, the market itself, uranium prices can be super volatile.
Oof. Sounds like they've got their work cut out for them. Environmental concerns, wild market swings. It's a lot to juggle.
And we haven't even talked about how the public sees it all. Nuclear energy still has that image problem from disasters like Chernobyl and Fukushima. Can Energy Fuels get past that? That's a big hurdle they're going to have to clear.
Right. Okay, so it's not just about digging up uranium. It's a whole mess of economics, being good to the environment, and winning over public opinion. This is way more complicated than I thought.
It is, and that's just the beginning. We haven't even gotten into the full potential and the challenges of their rare earth element side of things.
Okay, so before we got sidetracked with all the ins and outs of how Energy Fuels does its thing, we were in the middle of talking about how they deal with those, like, crazy uranium prices that jump all over the place.
Yeah, it's a real roller coaster ride.
How can they even, like, plan for the future when the market's going up and down like that?
Well, it's all about not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Diversifying, right, like we were talking about with the rare earth elements.
Exactly. That's their safety net. It's like having a plan B when things get rough.
So if the uranium market tanks, they've got other things to fall back on.
Precisely. And are also working on locking in those long-term contracts with the utility companies.
Oh yeah, those are the companies that actually use the uranium to make electricity, right?
Exactly. Those contracts guarantee them buyers at a set price, so they have some stability.
So even if the price of uranium crashes, they've got a guaranteed income stream.
That's the idea. But they're not just playing it safe, they're also pouring a lot of resources into new tech and innovation to make their operation more efficient and cut down on costs.
So they're making sure they can get the most out of every bit of uranium they mine.
Absolutely. They have to stay ahead of the curve and find ways to be competitive, especially when the market is so unpredictable.
Smart move. Okay, so they're playing the market game, right? But what about the environmental side of things? We talked about those concerns before. The waste and the possibility of contamination.
Right, and they know they can't mess around with that. They've invested a lot in minimizing their impact.
So, like, what are they actually doing? What does that look like in practice?
Well, take their White Mesa mill, for example. They've got this huge water recycling system in
To
place.
cut back on water usage.
Yeah, and to reduce the amount of wastewater they have to discharge.
Makes sense, especially out there in the desert where water is so precious.
Definitely. And they've also put in these advanced filtration systems to get rid of contaminants before they release any water.
So it's not just about using less water, it's about making sure the water they do use is clean.
Exactly. Plus, they're committed to reclaiming and restoring the land after they're done mining.
Trying to leave things as close to how they found them.
Right. But let's be honest, no mining operation is going to be perfectly impact-free.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why it's so important for them to be transparent and accountable. They need to be upfront about the risks, talk to the local communities, and address their concerns.
So it's not just about following the rules, it's about building trust with the people who live near their operations.
Right, showing them that they're not just there to take the resources and run. They want to be responsible stewards of the land and good neighbors.
So they're taking the environmental side seriously. What about that public image problem, though? With Chernobyl and Fukushima still fresh in people's minds, how can they convince folks that nuclear is safe?
It's a long road, for sure. They have to consistently prove that safety is their top priority. Show that they're using the latest technology and going above and beyond environmental standards.
But it's also about changing the whole story we tell about nuclear energy.
Absolutely. People still have that image of these old, dangerous power plants in their heads.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the new reactor designs, the super strict safety protocols, and the fact that it's a clean and reliable source of energy.
Reframing it as a solution to climate change, not some outdated technology.
Exactly. And that's a message that resonates with a lot of people, especially the younger generation, who are really worried about the climate crisis.
Right, they're the ones who are going to inherit this planet after all.
Exactly. So Energy Fuels has its work cut out for it, that's for sure. The market, the environment, public opinion, it's like they're trying to climb a mountain.
A really big, slippery mountain.
Yeah. We're not doing it alone, remember. There's a whole ecosystem involved. Government agencies, regulators, utility companies, research institutions.
All working together to make clean energy happen.
Right. And that recent push from the government has been a huge help.
You mean the funding for those new nuclear technologies we talked about?
Exactly. It shows that nuclear power is back in the game as a real contender in the clean energy race. It's opening doors for new ideas and investments.
So stuff like those small modular reactors and advanced recycling technologies.
Exactly. Those are game changers. And Energy Fuels is right there in the mix, working with researchers and developers to push the limits.
Though they're not just digging up uranium and calling it a day, they're shaping the future of the whole nuclear industry.
They want to be more than just a mining company. They see themselves as innovators, collaborators, pushing for progress in clean energy.
They've certainly got ambition, and they seem to be tackling all this with a lot of creativity, too.
They're definitely a company to keep an eye on, and their story really shows the big picture of the challenges and opportunities we face as we try to create a cleaner and more sustainable energy future.
Totally. And speaking of opportunities, we still haven't fully dug into that whole rare earth element thing.
That's right. That's a whole other can of worms with its own set of challenges and potential rewards.
And that's exactly where we're headed next. So stick around, folks. We're going deep into rare earth elements. Okay, so rare earth elements, right? We keep hearing how important they are, but what's the deal? Like, why should we care?
You know, it's funny. They're called rare earth elements, but they're actually not that rare.
Huh.
It's more like they're hard to find in large enough quantities to make mining worthwhile.
Oh, okay.
But they're everywhere in our technologies. Think about it, your smartphone, the battery in your electric car, wind turbines,
Yeah.
even military equipment. They all rely on rare earth elements.
So basically, they're the secret ingredient in all the cool tech we use every day.
You got it. And Energy Fuels is jumping on that. Remember how they're already mining uranium? Well, it turns out they can get some rare earth elements as a byproduct of that process right there at their White Mesa mill.
So they're kind of like hitting two birds with one stone, getting uranium and rare earth element from the same place.
Exactly. It's a pretty smart strategy. But they're not stopping there. They're also looking at other ways to get their hands on these rare earth elements, like recycling old electronics and even developing new ways to extract them.
Sounds like they're going all in on this, but why? Why are rare earth elements such a big deal for them?
Remember how we talked about the U.S. relying so heavily on other countries for uranium? Well, it's the same story with rare earth elements. And guess who's the main supplier? China, again.
Oh, so it's the same vulnerability, just a different element.
Yep. We depend on China for a lot of the stuff that makes our modern world run. and Energy Fuels wants to change that.
By creating a supply of rare earth elements right here in the U.S.
Exactly. Reduce our dependence and boost America's position in this like super important sector.
It's kind of like they're building a backup system for our whole tech world.
That's a great way to put it. And their timing couldn't be better. The demand for rare earth elements is skyrocketing, with electric cars getting more popular, renewable energy taking off.
Right, and everyone's got a smartphone these days.
Exactly. So it's not just about energy independence. It's about making sure we have what we need to build the tech of the future.
And build it here in America.
Right. If Energy Fuels pulls this off, it could have a ripple effect on the whole economy. More manufacturing jobs, more innovation, even a stronger national security. It's a big goal, but they've got the potential.
Wow. We started with uranium, and now we're talking about, like, the future of technology and the global economy. It's crazy how connected everything is.
It is, isn't it? You wouldn't think something as simple as turning on your lights would be tied to all this, but it is.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about after all this?
Well, I think the main thing is we're at a turning point. The energy world is changing fast.
Yeah.
And companies like Energy Fuels are leading the way. Their story shows us the challenges and the huge opportunities ahead as we try to build a cleaner, more sustainable future.
And it makes you realize that even something as basic as flipping a switch has connected to all these big issues: geopolitics, protecting the environment, technological innovation, even national security.
Yeah. It shows how interconnected we all are. The choices we make as individuals and as a country, they have a huge impact.
That's a lot to think about. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into energy fuels and the world of uranium and rare earth elements.
It's a fascinating story, that's for sure.
And we hope you learned something new. Until next time.